Jump off that exhausting hamster wheel and into balanced living with Dr. Marissa.
Promise you joy in the mystery.
Dr. Marissa, also known as the Asian Oprah. Her mission, to be a beneficial presence on the planet. Her purpose, to be your personal advocate to live, laugh, love, learn. Her life motto, don't die wondering. Take back your life with Dr. Marissa Pay.
And welcome. You are tuned into Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show here on NBC News, CNBC News, and NBC Sports Channel, KCAA, AM 1050, FM 102.3, FM 106.5, and streaming everywhere. iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, Spreaker, Amazon Music, iTunes, Audible, and more. I am Dr. Marissa. I am the host of this show about hope and happiness, and I'm on a happy 88 mission. 88 million more happy people in the next 8 years. And so I want to start you off every single morning at 8 a.m. on the way to wherever you're going with the best possible positive foot forward so the rest of your day can only go up. Hashtag UP Unlimited Possibilities. And I hope you had a great weekend. I surely did. I was up in Northern California celebrating Chinese New Year with my mamily, which is family except with a single mom. And I have a little short film I put together that you might learn a little about dumpling making and Chinese New Year and a little bit of Mandarin. Enjoy. Important ingredient. More insights for the vegetarian and the non-vegetarian. Say hi. Hi. And even the men in the house get into the action. More pink curds this time. More mushrooms. This is for the meat eater ones. And this is the stuff that goes in the middle. Peace, joy, wonder, serenity, bliss. Something inside of the jiaozi. Mix it with love, joy, peace, timing, and love. So that'll be the vegetarian version.
Can you repeat that? I'm writing down.
So,
Action.
新年快乐, Happy New Year, 恭喜发财. This is a traditional mamily exercise at New Year's. For Chinese New Year, we make dumplings from scratch, except for the wrapper. But I'm not that talented. But it's a symbol of long life and good fortune. And in one of these is wrapped, usually it's a coin, but my niece said no toxicity for metal inside, so we put a raisin. So whoever gets the dumpling with the raisin gets good luck. And my nephew thought he had it, but it was a shiitake mushroom, so we still have one out there. But this is how you wrap. You take the one, and you'll see one side has flour, you turn that down, so the less flour side, and then you take the glue, which is the scrambled egg, and you just paint the half moon on the top, and then you take the filling. This side is the meat filling. It's pork, shiitake mushrooms, and garlic, and Napa cabbage. This is the vegetarian version, which is mushroom, bean curd, mushroom, 4 different kinds of mushrooms, and garlic, and Napa cabbage. And then you take the bottom and put it on top here, and pinch it. And then you take this and fold it in, and fold it in, pinch. Do the same on the other side. That's what they call it there. That's okay. It's your first one. Be kind. Be kind. It's your first one. It's really good. This is Dr. Marissa reporting live for Chinese New Year, Year of the Tiger, in my favorite niece's kitchen, dining room. Peace in. Everybody peel in. Peace in. Peace out. World peace through inner peace. Happy, powerful New Year of the Tiger. There's some trash talking going on the dumpling making here, on the circuit. And this is the next
like
stage.
Not really cooking, but like I like this, or like maybe a cheese board, or like I like
Plenty of filling.
your stuff. Yeah. Look, it's got a Band-Aid on it. Oh, I Band-Aided it.
This is one of my workshop participants, who's also a really good friend of my niece's. So the cooking portion of the dumplings is a little careful. You have to be careful. As soon as it starts boiling, you put in a cup of cold water, because if it boils too hard, then it doesn't cook and the skin breaks open, and then you get swimming stuff. And you can see I've taught my daughter how to do this. Right, it's Chinese New Year. I'm going to give you a Chinese lesson. 新年快乐.
新年快乐.
And that means New Year happiness. But if you say 新年快乐, say 新年快乐, that means wash your face quickly. So you've got to get the intonation. Here's to a powerful year, more powerful than the pandemic, and one of joy, peace, love, and harmony. 13 different spices that you can put into your dumplings. But the tradition is you eat one dumpling with no sauce, so you get the full flavor of the natural taste, and then you use the different things. Okay? Bon appetit! Yay! Happy New Year! So yes, you can see I had a horrible time there. Sarcasm is another service that I offer. And you still have time to celebrate, because Chinese New Year goes from the 1st to the 15th. So pick a day, wear red, and go sample some delicious Chinese food for the occasion. And when we come back, baby that was born with a weak heart, a man who eventually needed a heart transplant, a musician, composer, and producer. His name is Paul Cardall. That story when we come back on Take My Advice, I'm Not Using It, Get Balance with Dr. Marissa, the morning show here on KCAA, the station that leaves no listener behind.
Take back your life with Dr. Marissa Pay.
And we're back. You're tuned in to Take My Advice. I'm Not Using It, Get Balance with Dr. Marissa, the morning show here on CNBC, NBC News, and NBC Sports Radio channel KCAA, AM 1050, FM 102.3, FM 106.5, and streaming everywhere, including where you can watch and listen, my YouTube channel, where you can not just watch and listen every episode, all 623 now, I believe. You can also sample my red carpet playlist, Presidente Fox, Halle Berry, John Travolta, Paul John DiGiorio. And for those of you who enjoyed my on-location interview at the Salvation Army New Center of Hope for the homeless, you might not know this, but John Paul DiGiorio was actually someone the Salvation Army helped. He was homeless, drug addicted, and now look at him. And he credits his recovery with Salvation Army. So if you missed that show, so you can hear more of that on my YouTube channel, as well as my new film, PPP, Post-Pandemic Possibilities.
But now, as promised, I'm bringing you my interview with Paul Cardall, and you'll hear his amazing story and how serendipitous it was to have him on my show. Enjoy.
And yes, you do notice my beautiful staff interpreter today, Sharon Pierre-Lewis. I brought her on for our Radio for Our Deaf Listeners series. And thank you for sharing those. We get lots of great feedback on how we're providing programming for that population. And it's part of our listening family. And I brought her in today. Today is actually my 2.5-year mark on the air, believe it or not. 130 shows. Thank you, xie, which is thank you in Mandarin for all of the listeners who've really helped make the show a success. And last year, my YouTube channel was 2 years old and I had 300 views. And as of today, I'm at 17,600 and something. So thank you all. You made that possible. All right. Now I am ready for a very incredibly inspiring guest, and I purposely asked Sharon to come, even though he is a musical guest, and I very rarely have musical guests on the program, but I wanted Sharon to be here, and my deaf community could share with their families the power of Paul's music. I found Paul on Pandora. I listen while I work, and I'm inspired by different kinds of music, and twice I went, oh, that's beautiful, and I put a little thumbs up on there, and found out twice that it was Paul Cardall. So I went to his website, contacted his rep. Rep was traveling, did not get back to me, and that next day I got an email from one of my favorite publicists, Harlan Ball, who said, I don't usually represent musicians, but I can't not represent Paul Cardall. So it was serendipity, and so I knew he was supposed to be on my show. So I am very, very proud to welcome on the air with me medical experts told internationally acclaimed pianist Paul Cardall that he would never survive a heart transplant given his long battle with congenital heart defect. Not only did the musician live, but Cardall landed a #1 Billboard album and a Steinway sponsorship without any major label support. Founded his own label, dominated Pandora Radio after undergoing a series of heart surgeries, ending with a complicated heart transplant. He's here to share with us the inside story on his amazing, not surviving, but thriving life journey, Mr. Paul Cardall. Hi, Paul.
Hi, how are you?
Thank you so much for coming on the show. And take me back, Paul. When did you realize that you were special?
Well, my parents. I have wonderful parents. And it's rare to have parents that are still together, but after all these years, they're still together. And I was born in 1973 in a time when kids born with defective hearts did not survive. There was a complication with my heart. It was basically only a single functioning ventricle. And immediately, doctors told my parents there was no chance I would survive. And in fact, they even had to take me to another hospital where they could perform an attempt surgery that would maybe correct some of the plumbing issues that would enable me to have a couple months, maybe a year. And fortunately, there was a surgeon who was in California at a conference. He flew all the way to Salt Lake City, and I wasn't even a day old when my parents tell me that they cut into my little chest, and he opened my chest, he worked on my heart, and beautifully orchestrated a little miracle. I survived. My parents were told, go ahead, take your son home, but don't expect too much. My parents are very optimistic people, and they never, I guess, treated me different than any of my other brothers and sisters. There were 7 others.
Wow.
And so there really wasn't time to say, hey, you're more important than the other. I just knew once a year, every 6 months, I got one-on-one time with my parents because they took me to the children's hospital to continue to get medical tests, and so doctors could monitor
Great.
what was wrong with me. So, and then I felt like most normal kids.
Mm-hmm.
I was out on the playground with everybody. I guess the only time I felt somewhat nervous or embarrassed or scared was when I had to take my shirt off and everybody would see the scar.
Okay.
Of course, now it doesn't even faze me.
Right.
But
They're battle scars. Good battle scars because you won.
battle scars.
Yes. And if you're tuning in just a little late and you're wondering who's on the air with me, it is the amazing Paul Cardall, who's a musician, an internationally acclaimed musician who had every reason to sort of give up. He was born with a congenital heart defect, and I guess it's kind of like the John Q movie, is my guess, where he had kind of a half a heart. Is that about the same?
It's similar.
Okay.
There's over 40,000 different types of congenital heart disease, but it is the number one birth defect. It is, the leading cause of infant-related deaths.
Yeah.
There's probably about 1 million children born worldwide a year with some form of defect that require lifelong medical care and most often need surgery.
Wow. And it was news to me when I was doing the research. So you were not expected to live long. You were not expected, certainly, to have a normal childhood where you could play and run around and interact, but you did.
I did. And yet, that's how I was raised, with somewhat in the back of my mind, you might not grow old. You might not go to college. You might not, ever fall in love. But when you're a kid, you feel immortal. And, the older we get, the more we start to feel like, I'm noticing all these problems with my body, and what can I do to make my life easier? What remedy is there? But at the time, I was fearless. At age 13, I had open heart surgery because I had a bad infection. A year later, I had reconstructive heart surgery because they had found new ways to make it so that I could run a little faster. And get more oxygen into every part of my body. And so it was really one battle after another, and yet we stayed optimistic through it all. That obviously, to answer your question, my parents said, "There's a reason you're here," and that's something we should tell our kids, anyways.
True.
But they basically said, "There's something special and unique about you, and you're supposed to be here."
That's great. That's great. So when did you start playing the piano?
My brothers and sisters were playing sports, and I leaned towards playing the piano. I took piano lessons when I was 8. But
so that's actually a little late. I started at 9, which is late.
Oh, you
too.
did?
Yes.
It is a little late. I think parents can start kids earlier. I was taking lessons from my great aunt, and she was old, and she wanted me to learn all these songs from the 20s and 30s, like, Joplin and Berlin. And at that time, I was interested I wanted to learn Michael Jackson's songs, and I wanted to be able to play the pop songs on the piano. And so after a year, I didn't last a year taking lessons. But as a teenager, as I was kind of contemplating some of the challenges I'd been through, and I had lost a friend of mine in high school, I went back to the piano in my parents' living room and sat there, and I was thinking about why I'm still alive and some of the deeper questions we have in life. And that's when I started to play a melody on the piano, and I learned I could create melodies, and I could slowly add the accompaniment. And what it did for me was each note sent this peace to my soul. Like, everything's okay. Everything's fine. Just live your life and love it.
Every time I sit down and I know I have to do some work that requires inspiration, I turn your music on, by the way.
I guess you heard that on Pandora, I guess.
I did. I was just, and I'm, one of those that's not necessarily generous with my thumbs up. I asked for a lot of thumbs up, but you have to really impress me to get a thumbs up. And so you got 2 of them on the same day, and I went, okay, that's when I have to figure out who this is. But so absolutely. So just realistic. I'm going to put the moose on the table here. It's my Canadian version of the elephant in the room. Were you ever mad? Were you ever like, why me? Were you ever like, this isn't fair? They're out there playing sports and I have to, stay in because if I get too excited, I'm told to calm down. I mean, or maybe you weren't.
As I got older, I became a little more upset at the circumstance, but mainly it was when I became a father and my heart started to fail. I really got upset at the whole scenario because I didn't want to be sick around raising a toddler and a child. I wanted to be healthy. I wanted to be able to go outside and play with this little girl of mine. But unfortunately, I was on oxygen all the time, canceling gigs, not able to record music. And that's when the doctors told me I needed a heart transplant. That's when I got even more upset because I knew, gosh, getting a heart transplant, that means I'm going to be taking the organ of somebody else. That's somebody's son or brother or father, and someone's going to lose somebody. And not that they're dying so that I could live, but somewhere out there, there's the beauty of organ donation. And somebody's passing, they don't need that organ anymore. But all these thoughts, all these emotions was complicated for me. And
this wasn't that long ago, right?
No, it was 5 years ago.
5 years ago.
September that I received the heart. But I was listed for the heart in 2008. I waited about 385 days.
But who's counting?
Got the heart.
Yeah. So your heart was declining. It wasn't to the point. So up to that point, you'd been able to function with the diminished capacity heart that you had. So it wasn't really, you weren't suffering, so to speak, but it became untenable, is my guess.
Congenital heart disease, it's unique because you pretty much just get shortness of breath and you get tired and swelling, you get edema. But it's not like another disease where you're in a lot of pain. You just struggle to move. You feel like a snail. And often because of the heart failure, my body would swell up. So I always felt like Violet from, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Maybe they could just take me to the squeezing room and dejuice me. But so it was an awkward time. I sat in a chair. I kept a blog to communicate with my fans. And if my daughter wanted to find me, there was a big oxygen tank and there was a 50-foot cord. And she would just grab hold of that cord and her dad would be at the other end of it. So it was a bittersweet time.
Right.
But it was a beautiful time.
Isn't he fabulous? Very humble, very talented, and you must go listen to some of his music and go support him. He's everywhere. Just put in Paul Cardall. I found him on my Pandora station, as I mentioned. How? #Naxidental was that. That's the same as not accidental. When we return here on Take My Advice, I'm Not Using It, Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show here on KCAA, the station that leaves no listener behind.
Take back your life with Dr. Marissa Pay.
And we're back. You're tuned in to Take My Advice. I'm Not Using It. Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show here on NBC News Radio, KCAA, AM 1050, FM 102.3, FM 106.5, and streaming everywhere. covers an area of over 5 million homes in Southern California. And then online, it's limitless. Over 100 countries tune in to KCAA, as well as to my YouTube channel. So grateful. And we're almost at 250,000 views. So please do free subscribe there. And for the rest of the show, Paul Cardall, his story, and his music. Enjoy.
And if you've just joined us, I'm talking to Paul Cardall, an inspiring man who was born with basically half a heart and then put on the list for a heart transplant. And all in this time, he's living and he's writing and he's composing the most inspirational music that I have heard. And how does one sit in tragedy? How does one sit in a diminished state, quote unquote, according to the world? Like if you don't have full health, how do you sit there and say it was a beautiful time?
Well, to answer that, if I were to give you your birth certificate with an expiration date, would you want to know what it is? It's a good question.
Good question. Yes and no. Yes and no.
Right.
I'm grateful. My life motto is don't die wondering. And right. So, life is short and I live every day as if this is my last day. But
every minute of every hour is fragile.
Right. And for you, I guess knowing that, I had a friend, now that you remind me, I had a best friend in grad school, Michael Maine, who found out he had HIV positive and then died of AIDS. And I also asked him the same question. And he said, there's a beauty to know that my time is limited because I don't waste 1 minute.
Well, and that's the key is when you're given a diagnosis, and the doctors told me I had a year to live, and it would take maybe about a year to get a heart. I had a choice because how we react to our circumstances, it's not about us. It affects other people.
Right.
And it's harder for me in that experience to watch the ones I love sit in wonder and they're praying for me, they're serving me, in a way I felt kind of selfish because everyone's taking care of me. And so it becomes a very beautiful thing because you accept the service. In the beginning, it's hard to accept the service.
Yes, I get it. And just the little backstory, I'm assuming you're married. So tell me how you met your wife.
I actually met my wife on a cruise to the Holy Land. It was a beautiful setting to meet her. And she's just been a blessing to me and really manages me. And
I like that. She manages you.
She does it very well. I want to say she completes me, but that's so overused.
Right. Plus that assumes that you're not enough.
Correct.
Yes. And you are whole in and of yourself. So were you playing on the cruise? Sorry, I'm nosy.
I was actually playing I played a little bit on the cruise. There was a while there that I was hosting tour groups. I was asked to go on cruises as kind of a celebrity guest. And so I did a couple of those, and fortunately that's where I met her.
Wonderful.
And it was a beautiful romance. So.
Aww. Now, were you ever, again, to put the moose on the table, did you ever think, I don't want to marry her or have children because I don't know how long? Did that ever cross your mind?
That's the question I always posed to her was, right off the bat when we met, I said, listen, I've got a congenital heart defect. I've got heart complications. And she says, listen, I could go drive and somebody could run into me. Be gone in a car accident.
Right.
We can't live our lives waiting for tragedy to happen.
Thank you. Say that again, please, to my listeners.
Don't live your life waiting for a tragedy.
Yeah.
Expect a miracle every day. You will see them happen.
Yes. I totally agree with you. I'm so glad. It breaks my heart when I hear people worrying about something that living their life based on the worry, well, we're going to get attacked, or the economy's never going to recover, or, and this just worst case scenario that just drives the whole timbre and the energy vibration down for our country, and for our planet.
Well, we're afraid of a lot of things, but that's because there's a lot of big organizations that want us to be afraid in order to,
yes,
have their needs met.
Yes.
When in reality, one of the beautiful analogies my wife always says is, if it's making you swim upstream, then maybe you need to reevaluate what it is that's causing you so much stress.
Wow. Yeah, that almost sounds like a law of attraction statement.
It is. And, you take the analogy of I wrote a song called The River years ago. And for me, I was looking at how there's this swift current and the fish are facing upstream, but there's these rocks in the middle of the river, and they're really calm behind these rocks. What are the rocks in our lives that, can protect us from the fast-paced current of society? We need to create those
beautiful
places, those moments that we can go to get, I guess, control over our life again, and to reevaluate where we are, what are we doing, and what do we want for ourselves.
Yes. Yeah. And even asking those mini questions like that every time we take a very deep breath and just step away from what we're doing. I call that a soft reset. And just answering those questions. Okay, who am I really? Am I really what that person just said? Or am I really what I'm afraid that people are saying? Or who am I? And what do I want in this moment? How do I get back to that 88%, which you're obviously living in? And what is your beautiful wife's name?
Her name is Tina.
Hello, Tina. And shia Tina for the support and the managing that you do of Paul to help him be so inspiring.
All men should have good women to manage them.
I'll have to put that in a commercial.
Well, Doctor, that's the beauty of music and allowing us to take the time to meditate, to reevaluate our own lives. And it's been clinically proven. In fact, McGill University did a study that says certain types of music, like the music I create, boost the immune system. And listening to it during the day is more effective than certain antidepressants.
There you go. Another reason you're my guest on the show. And my dad went to McGill, so that's even more special. And so, Paul, I'm going to read some things that you've done since your heart transplant 5 years ago. At 3 months after your transplant, you founded the Paul Cardall Family Foundation for Congenital Heart Disease. At 6 months after, you sold out at Abravanel Hall and raised $65,000 for the foundation. 6 months after heart surgery, established endowment of the Salt Lake Community College, offering annual full tuition waiver scholarships to students affected by congenital heart disease. At 9 months, and I thought I was an overachiever, at 9 months, climbed the highest mountain peak along the Wasatch Front in honor of your brother, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a second. At 18 months, his album New Life, appropriately called, became the #1 Billboard album and was awarded Album of the Year by New Age Reviews. Published the memoir Before My Heart Stops with Utah publisher Shadow Mountain, selling 25,000 copies in his first 6 months. 2 years after heart surgery, he was awarded the honorary doctorate by Utah State Board of Regents. And in the last 5 years, you've spoke to an estimated 1.5 million people, keynoting medical national galas, charity events, medical conferences, and churches. I think we need an applause just for that. Is amazing. It puts my own beehive to shame. I had a hip replacement, but that's nothing like a heart
well,
transplant.
It's still transplanting something.
But that is just beautiful, and that's why you're getting your award. And you join a list of esteemed people, a lot of past Oprah guests, and so thank you for that. Let's talk a little bit about your brother. If your heart's not enough of something that should hold you back, but absolutely did not, you lost your brother, and that was a very sad event.
I did, because you look at the scenario of my parents, it's very Shakespearean, because two of my parents' sons had illnesses. One you could see on an x-ray. Mm-hmm. The other we're just learning about. It's called mental illness. Mm. And my brother suffered from that later on as he was going to college, and a lot of responsibilities came into his life. Mm-hmm. He was working on his PhD at Northern Arizona University, and I had been listed for my heart transplant for about 9 months when he had an episode, and unfortunately during the episode, instead of getting help from a couple of police officers, he was tasered. Mm. He was tasered twice, and the second taser ended his life.
Oh my goodness.
It was really ironic and really strange. I got a call from my father saying that we had lost my brother. And it was just absolutely devastating, particularly because my father was a local journalist in Utah. Mm-hmm. And at the time, there was a headline that went across that said, the son of, news director Dwayne Cardall has passed away. And so, because I was waiting for a heart, my phone got flooded with phone calls saying, "We are so sorry, what can we do?"
Right.
Which was really interesting, because I got to hear how people would react in the event of my death. And people were sweet. I mean, can you imagine being in that predicament?
Mm-hmm.
And so it was really ironic. But my brother's a fighter, and my brother was extremely successful in everything he did. Mm-hmm. He was one of the most promising young geneticists, ecological geneticists in the country when he died. Mm-hmm. And it took a lot of energy out of me, but I was able to go to the funeral. But I made a commitment on the day that he passed. I knew he wanted me to fight like hell to live.
Right.
And that's when I made the commitment to climb a mountain.
Okay.
1 year. So the commitment was, I'm going to get my heart, and 1 year from his passing, I would climb the highest mountain peak in Utah.
Wow.
And that's, I believe in the power of intention, and that's what I started to do. Mm-hmm. I started to think, this is going to happen. And I knew my brother was cheering me on still.
Yes.
And 3 months later, on September 9th, 2009, I got the heart transplant. And 9 months later, on June 9th, 2009, I climbed, on 2010, I climbed Mount Olympus with all my family.
Everybody went?
Everybody. Listen, you don't want to climb a mountain by yourself.
I don't climb mountains. Hiking, I'm allergic to hiking, so we don't have to worry about that.
But it's very similar to life. We don't want to go through it on our own. We've got to surround ourselves with an amazing support group. And that is the only way I was able to get to the top.
Wow. Yeah.
Was my family pulling me, and my brother's
That's beautiful.
memory and everything. It was a beautiful day.
What was his name?
His name was Brian.
Brian.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Very, very gifted musician himself. In fact, on my album New Life, there was a piece he wrote about one of our grandfathers, and I took that song, and it's called The Traveler.
That's beautiful.
I do believe it is important to take complete control over your own health. Don't let one doctor make a decision for you. You are to shop for your doctor just as you shop for a home that you're going to live in.
Good point. Good point. Absolutely.
Get control over your own health is key to my survival.
Yes. I'm sure you've learned that the hard way, it sounds like.
Right. Well, when you have a defect, and very few people have survived from it, I'm the first in Utah to receive a heart transplant with my complicated case. But it took a matter of me trying to educate as much as I could about my own situation, and then asking doctors the right questions and trying to figure out, where should I go to have this surgery done? Because not everybody was equipped to deal with a congenital defect.
Now, you share a lot of this information in your nonprofit work, correct?
I do, because the reason congenital heart disease, the reason I spend so much time with it, I've been richly blessed. I've sold lots of records. This particular album that I put together, Saving Tiny Hearts, that comes out on November 11th, I'm donating my royalty to help medical research, because there's an organization called Saving Tiny Hearts, which is the name of the album. They're the most effective at prolonging life because they have a team of medical advisors that handpick the best grant application, and then we seed the money so they can get a grant for the most effective solution to a problem, so more kids, more people will live a long life.
That's beautiful. And that is coming out November 11th. I watched the video yesterday. It was beautiful. Now, you weren't playing the drums in that, were you?
No.
Oh, okay. I was like, wow. He's cute.
Yeah. He's got those Roy Orbison glasses on. He looks fantastic.
Are you saying he's not without his glasses? No, we're not going there. Anyway, so November 11th, Saving Tiny Hearts. It will be available all over the place, Amazon, iTunes, correct? And all proceeds are going towards this foundation that helps these all the children who are being born with, and you said up to 1 million children are born with some kind of a heart defect, correct?
Yes, and it's interesting because congenital heart disease, it's the number one birth defect, but it's the least funded.
Now, why is that?
I think it's because you can't see the problem unless these kids take their shirts off and you see the scars.
Okay. Well, we're going to change that. We're going to change that as of right now. All my listeners.
I think everybody needs, every disease needs, funding.
Yes.
But this particular illness, it's so complicated, and it's the main reason parents lose a child at birth, and which is, it's sad enough, as it is when you lose your child, especially if it's your firstborn or whatever. It's challenging, but
yes.
The fact that I'm alive, I know these other kids can survive. It's just a matter of having the proper procedures in place.
Yeah. So let me talk a bit about your inspiration process, because I play the piano and I also write. When you prepare to write, do you sit down and say, I'm going to write, or do you just sit down and then sometimes you feel inspired and sometimes you don't?
Yes.
Okay.
It's up and down. There are days where it just flows through me and days it doesn't. Right after the heart transplant, I actually forgot a lot of my music. I had to relearn a lot of it. And I thought, gosh, after this experience, I should have all these brilliant ideas, because I've been dealing with the highs and lows of my life almost ending. And yet it took me about 1.5 years before I started to write that number one record, New Life. And then it seemed like after 1.5 years, all of a sudden it just came like lightning. Everything started to pour through me. And really all I'm doing is interpreting emotions with the piano versus trying to paint a picture or tell a story. It's an emotion that I get through. Beautiful.
Yeah. And that emotion, I liken it almost to the inspiration, or we all have that connection. Yeah. We all are capable of being, I call it, taking that plug out of your butt, or in your case, out of your heart, and plugging it into the matrix type energy grid of the, and that we all can be inspired and then use whatever our gift is to channel that energy through. Yours through the piano and writing, mine through my mouth talking or writing. And so that gift is accessible to all of us. So
Yeah. And I think, Doctor, that it's a common thread of spirituality that's
thank you for that. I was waiting for that segue.
best defined in 4 letters, LOVE.
Yes.
It's when we all are in tune with that principle of love.
Right.
And it's a universal language, and it's you're correct. It's through story, it's through art, it's through music. It's in all kinds of ways, but we all feel it. No one's immune.
Right. And I love that because I feel connected to you through that vein of love, that vein of spirituality, or that vein of that energy that transcends the religion or the religious aspect of things. And I love that because, one of my favorite songs that I shared with you that I checked twice was actually The Temple. And the full name is what? I Love the Temple?
I love to see the temple.
I love to see the temple. And
There's
then
so different religions that use a temple. It's a sanctuary, and it's just a nice little reminder of that there's something greater than ourselves, and yet we can get in tune with creation and with spirituality and essence, love.
Yes. And that's what I love about our generation is that we're not limited by the religion anymore. We can actually transcend and all gravitate towards that love. And you certainly are a great example of that connection in a very limited connection physically that I've had with you. I do feel the same love for life, and certainly the love for what you're doing and the inspiring work that you do. Thank you so much for coming on the air with me. And any last words to my listeners or anyone out there?
No, I appreciate all that you're doing to bring more light into the world. I think that people generally are all good. We just need to give everybody a chance and look at the world as a gift. We never know when tragedy is going to take place, and so don't wait for it.
Yes.
Just focus on enjoying and making today more beautiful than it already is.
Beautiful. And that was Paul Cardall, #1 Billboard artist, amazing inspiration, born with half a heart, but now has a heart that has expanded to cover the world with the beauty of his music. Thank you so much, Paul, for coming on the air.
And I hope you enjoyed getting to know someone so special. He actually sent in what I've been using as the promo, a congratulations for 8 years on the air.
Hey, Dr. Marissa. Congratulations on your anniversary. Your podcast is lighting the world. I'm thankful for the time I've had to be able to talk to you and to be on your excellent show and talk about the music I create, the heart transplant I had years ago. And, ever since then, it's been my life's work to use my music to help heal and soothe other hearts. We just released Peaceful Piano, which has been nominated actually for Classical Album of the Year by the A2 Independent Musicians Association. Very, very cool. So you know what good music is, and I've always appreciated being part of your show. So congratulations again on your anniversary. Everybody who is listening, God bless you. This is a good woman. She's got great advice. All the best. Again, I'm Paul Cardall, signing out. Happy anniversary, Dr. Marissa.
Which was last May. So we're coming up on 9 years. This is my 510th consecutive week on the air. And this is show number 636. 3. And today's Asian Oprah giveaway is another pair of tickets to my twin sister's fabulous concert at the Cerritos Center for Performing Arts on February 25th. If you go to drmarissa.life and put in Cerritos, which will be short for the Cerritos Center for the Performing Arts, you will get a pair of tickets and you will join me as we welcome back the music of Keiko Matsui. It will be an evening to remember, I promise. drmarissa.life and Cerritos in the subject line for my hashtag Asian Oprah giveaway. And if you didn't already know, I was actually introduced to Oprah as the Asian Oprah by my big brother, Michael Bernard Beckwith. And this is Dr. Marissa reporting live from her living room during the pandemic, reminding you that it is all about balance. Peace in, peace out, world peace through inner peace. Now go forth and multiply the music that you are and have the best day ever. See you tomorrow.